once you have Node and TSX installed, the next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to get our code repository on your computer. So you can do this one of two ways. You can go to the link below. Okay, so this is the GitHub repository here with all of the code that you're going to need. And what you'll do is click on this green code button. And if you are familiar with Git and you want to use Git, which is what we're going to be doing in this course, you can actually just copy this from your to the clipboard here. If you go to your terminal here, open up terminal. I'm actually just going to change to my desktop really here. And if you do git clone, paste that link in here and then do a space and name it whatever you want. So maybe you call this like takeoff agents or something. This is going to clone all of this code. In other words, it's going to download all of this code into that folder. Okay, so we're going to change directory with CD into takeoff agents here. And then if I open that up in Cursor, you're going to see we have all of the code that we need for this particular course. So the other thing that you can do if you don't want to use Git is you can just download a zip file, and that's going to download your code as a folder there. And you can actually just open that and then open that with whatever IDE you're using. I obviously recommend using Cursor just like we do across all of our different courses here on Takeoff. Cursor is a phenomenal tool and you'll find it extremely useful, especially if you're trying to build very complex agents. So a lot of the things it can do on the AI code gen side of things that really going to make your life a lot easier. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go over to the right here. I already have a working repository. And I just want to show you two more things that you're going to need in this course. So one of the things that you will need, we're actually just going to start with OpenAI here because we're going to be using OpenAI's models for the duration of this course. If you want to use, Google's models or Anthropic's models, that's totally fine. Keep in mind that the APIs for their models may differ slightly from the code that we're writing in this course. So I do highly recommend you just follow along with me using the OpenAI APIs, because once we get into things like function calling, again, that API is going to vary depending on what platform you're using. So if you stick with me and you stick with the OpenAI models, which I think are probably the most standard, and when it comes to documentation, probably the best documented, hence best for learning, I think this is kind of a good way to pick up all those skills. So recommend following along with OpenAI. And then if you want to go off on your own and experiment with some other models, definitely do that. Tons of companies make really awesome models. Claude 3.5 Sonnet at the time of recording this is an absolutely killer model. So I use that for a lot of my agents. But this is what we're going to be using. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go to platform.openai.com/API-keys. And you're going to need to make sure you have an OpenAI account. You're going to make sure that you need to generate a new project and grab an API key, okay? So keep in mind, you're always going to want to make sure your API key is private here. So I'm just going to call this new key. I'll delete this right after I finish recording here. That's the other reason I'm showing you that key here. And what we're going to do here is we're going to paste this in. You're also going to see this database URL here. That's going to come into play for the memory section. So you don't need to worry about that right now. But what you're going to want to do here, you're going to notice, wait, I don't have a .env.local file. You're going to need to go right click in here or click the new file button. And you're just going to need to copy these values here from .env.example into .env.local. Okay, so you're going to have your OpenAI API key and your database URL. This value will still be blank for you, so you don't even need to worry about that. But make sure that your OpenAI API key is ready to roll in there. And then once you have that ready, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to open up a terminal here. So the way I usually do that is if you actually click this problems button down here, you'll see problems pop up and you'll see the ability to click on this terminal tab will be there. Okay, so now we're in a terminal. You can also use the terminal on your computer if you want. I just like doing every single thing right here within Cursor. It just keeps everything in one place. I don't have to juggle around multiple windows. But what we're actually going to do is we're going to do npm I. This is going to do npm install. So you should hopefully have node modules pop up, a package-lock.json pop up, and this is basically going to get all the different libraries that we're going to be using in this course here. Okay, so you can see we have a few things in here that we're going to be needing to actually be able to run our code. And what you can do here is if you click into sections, and intro, and you click on index.ts here, what you can do is if you right click on this and you can copy relative path to test if your API key is all hooked up and to test if your TSX is working properly, what you should be able to do is go into your terminal and you should be able to do TSX space, paste that file path and hit return. And you should see it running the code that we have in this index.ts file. And what this code is basically doing is this is some sort of a loop that's, you can see is a while loop here, that's basically performing a little bit of a command line style AI chat. So we're using GPT-4o Mini here. We have a very basic system prompt, and you can see it's basically prompting us to say something. So we'll just say hi. And what you should be getting is you should be getting a response back from the AI. So if you get to this step, you're set up correctly. Keep in mind the kind of key things is that you're going to have to make sure that you have Node and TSX installed from the previous lesson. So you want to make sure you have those installed. You're going to want to make sure that you have actually successfully cloned this correct repository. Okay, so obviously you're going to need to be running the same code that we're going to be running here. And you're also going to make sure that you have an active API key, an active OpenAI API key that is in your .env.local file. And then if you copy that relative path, I can actually just hit Control C here to exit out of this. And if I do TSX, and again, we're going to paste that file path here, it's going to run that particular file. And we should be able to say, hello, my name is McKay. Right, and then we're going to get a response from the AI. Okay, so that is every single thing that you need to actually get set up here. If you were able to follow all of those steps, you're going to be golden. You're going to be ready to roll. The complexity for at least the next few sections isn't going to get much beyond this. Again, we're going to get into some of the memory stuff coming up here. So we are going to get into a little bit of a database setup here. But you're not going to have to worry about that for a few more minutes here. So make sure you get all of these. You're just going to want to make sure you get up to the point where this file is working correctly. Some of the issues you may run into, again, make sure you have Node installed and TSX. Those are always the number one things that I see people running into. It's usually that TSX step, and things didn't go quite right there. So just make sure that's running, and then just make sure that you have an active API key, which sometimes the OpenAI API can be weird if you just set up a new account or something. So if you just set up a brand new account, you may need to wait a few minutes for that to activate. I've seen that a few times. But other than that, you should be all good to go. So let's go ahead and move on.